Tonight on CFTK-TV News, lots of BC residents don't think much of Ottawa's GST break. We have a report on what has happened most recently with the Liberal Party's dysfunction, and another report looks over the damage caused by BC's 2024 wildfire season.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Baslett, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. Back on Christmas Eve, the Sherbrooke apartment building caught on fire, which resulted in 99 of the building's residents having to be evacuated, and while everyone was evacuated safely at the time, it left many people displaced, and one family ended up not being saved from loss in the end. In the post on the Prince Rupert Community Bulletin Board, one family that came from the building confided that a family member named Juanita Hill passed away due to natural causes only a few days after the evacuation took place. Now they are asking for some assistance to get through this difficult time via a GoFundMe linked on the bulletin board post. The Nisga'a-Lism's government executive recently announced on their website that they have given approval to the plan that will see a $43.5 million assisted living and campus of care building built in New Ianche. The building is set to provide things like assisted living units, an adult day center, and palliative/end-of-life care for the local Nisga'a residents who need it the most. Regular updates on the project will be provided by the Nisga'a-Lism's government, and more in-depth information can be found on the original post on the government's website. The holiday season is soon coming to an end, and as the dust settles on a typically busy shopping time, retailers and shoppers here in BC say Ottawa's GST break has been a bust. CTV's Rob Buffum reports.
For many shoppers, the lure of saving 5% on certain purchases hasn't enticed them to buy more.
Really wasn't on my radar.
No, it wouldn't impact us at all.
Has it changed your shopping habits?
Absolutely not.
From December 14th through February 15th, the federal government has offered a so-called GST holiday for a select number of items, including beer, cider, wine, and some pre-mixed coolers with less than 7% alcohol.
The savings people are getting on their alcohol isn't really drawing them in. It's just like $1 here or there.
Also exempt some children's toys, including stuffies, and all puzzles. At this toy store, the tax break is small enough it's made no difference to business.
I would say not at all. I really don't think it generated any extra revenue.
Various snack foods and restaurant meals are also captured by the exemptions, but many restaurants found it hard to know what was exempt and how to implement the changes to their systems, making it more a holiday headache than help.
There's also a training cost because in some cases, if you were having a martini, it would have GST. If I had a glass of wine, it wouldn't.
What's more, the temporary hassle is poorly timed, say businesses.
Funny enough, maybe the worst time to do it because it's already a very busy shopping season. It'd be much better to do this, February, March when things are slower.
So while consumers are saving several bucks for another 6 weeks, the feds are losing out on plenty of tax revenue, and for most retailers, this will be a holiday season to forget. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
Coming up next, a Metro Vancouver strip mall recently had an incident that left it unrecognizable. Welcome back. Northern BC police are investigating a suspicious death after a man was found dead outside the small community of Mackenzie, which is around 180 kilometers north of Prince George. Mounties say major crime investigators are looking for witnesses or people who were seen in the area of the Finlay Community Connector 4 service road on Friday evening or Saturday morning. Mackenzie RCMP reportedly responded to a call Saturday morning about a man lying on the edge of the roadway where responding officers found the body. Police said the investigation is now in the hands of the North District Major Crime Unit in partnership with the local police and the BC Corridor Service. While 2024's wildfire season in BC was not as bad as it was in 2023, the worst season in the province's history, it still did more than its fair share of damage, and because of that, preparation and fire prevention will be key going into 2025. CTV's Brendan Strain reports on what the provincial government is thinking of doing, in addition to looking at what the 2024 wildfire season brought.
July of this year, the Old Man Lake wildfire. broke out just 3 kilometers from Souk.
It was just glowing red.
That had residents on high alert as it burned out of control for nearly 2 weeks.
It's overwhelming and terrifying.
Extremely challenging terrain, big trees, steep ground.
It proved to be a hard fire to fight, suspected to be human-caused. Fortunately, it was soon contained, being the only real large fire of note this year on Vancouver Island.
For the most part, we were in an export mode.
Meaning island-based crews were sent to other parts of the province to help with other wildfires, predominantly in the north and the interior of BC.
2024 is looking like it's projected to be the 4th worst wildfire season on record.
With nearly 1,700 wildfires, burning more than 1 million hectares of forests.
We're projecting north of $700 million that's going to cost the province.
Comparing that to 2023, which was BC's worst wildfire season on record, that ran up a bill of more than $1.1 billion.
Climate change is happening. It's impacting us here in British Columbia in the form of wildfires.
BC's Minister of Forests says wildfire preparedness is one of the province's top priorities.
We've invested more in resources.
An example of that? Hiring more contractors, firefighters, and helicopters on standby to ensure that when those resources are needed, they're ready to go. That also includes new technological investments, including night vision cameras and other innovations.
We piloted what I think is a bit of a game changer technology called Tactical Analyst.
That is software that will calculate the potential fire growth within minutes of the fire being identified, looking at forest fuel types of the fire and the topography that it is burning in.
It gives us some intelligence on where to put our resources and hit the highest priorities with the most potential first.
As for what the Coastal Fire Center predicts for the upcoming wildfire season, our wet fall has been good heading into the winter, although June is generally the month that is the big predictor.
What we get for June precipitation sets the tone for the rest of the fire season.
Brendan Strain, CTV News, Victoria.
A Metro Vancouver strip mall is nearly unrecognizable after an incident on Sunday morning. Witnesses describe it as an explosion that tore through several small businesses, and CTV's Craig Krause has more information.
As you can see behind me, the facade of this strip mall here in Coquitlam has been completely destroyed in what some are calling an explosion on Sunday morning. And you can see in these images the aftermath of the incident. Coquitlam Fire says crews responded to alarms at the North Road Mall just after 6 a.m. yesterday. We're also being told that no one was injured, but one business tells CTV News that an employee was inside and managed to get out safely.
When the officer arrived on scene here, there has been glass thrown throughout the parking lot, so possibility of an explosion in one of the units.
I'm worrying about, these conditions inside, if my computers are okay, if, our documents are okay.
And at this time, no cause has been given, but arson has not been ruled out. Now the investigation is underway. Craig Krause, CTV News, Coquitlam.
We now switch over to CTV's Colton Prail with a report on the latest happenings within the federal Liberal Party, as many of the party members are publicly wishing for party leader and current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to resign from his post.
2025 is just around the corner, and that means that we're almost in an election year.
As Justin Trudeau and the Liberals turn their eyes to the upcoming election in a new digital ad, members of his own party are hoping for a different vote, one to select a new Liberal leader. The party's Atlantic Caucus is now calling on the Prime Minister to step down, and for a national caucus meeting in January to determine if the Liberals can appoint an interim leader.
Now, it's not just resignation, it's about rebellion within the Liberal Party.
In a statement to CTV News, Liberal MP Wayne Long says publicizing the letter is an attempt to pressure colleagues and cabinet ministers to speak up and do what he says is right. It's the latest letter, but far from the only one. Public calls from Liberal MPs have been mounting for weeks.
They're already looking past the Prime Minister. They're talking about what would a leadership race look like, who would compete, how would it be constructed, how does that fit with the parliamentary calendar and the threat of a non-confidence vote. And in some respects, caucus is already looking past the Prime Minister.
But while Trudeau is losing support in his own party, there's one opposition MP still backing his government.
We have such serious issues facing us as a nation and as a planet. And the leader of the opposition is not a serious leader.
NDP MP Charlie Angus said on social media he won't vote non-confidence, even though Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have promised to do so. Other NDP MPs did not respond to questions about how they plan to vote.
As Canadians wait for Justin Trudeau to make a decision on his future, polling from Nanos Research coming out tomorrow shows the Liberals continuing to tumble, while the Conservatives push even higher. Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
And now we are set to take a look at both your nightly and weekly weather forecast. For the nightly cast, the north coast will see some mainly cloudy conditions at a low at 1 degree. The Terrace-Kitimat area is most likely to get a few clouds as well, with their low being at -6 degrees, and the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is supposed to deal with clearing conditions as well as a low at -13 degrees. As for the weekly forecast, the north coast will get familiar with mostly snowy, cloudy, and rainy conditions once again, as their high shifts from 1 to 4 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the week for them should be home to lots of snow and clouds, with the high moves from -6 to -3 degrees. In the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the next week or so will start with a sunny day, but then get snow and flurries after that, as their high bounces between -11 and -7 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is slippery sections, utility work, blowing snow, high winds, maintenance, and the Usk Ferry has been shut down for the season with the cable car now in effect. Highway 35 has slippery sections, and Highway 118 has some slippery sections too. Highway 37 has some avalanche control work, blowing snow, slippery sections, and the Moonlit Creek rest area is still closed due to flooding. Highway 37A has more slippery sections. Even more slippery sections are on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has slippery sections as well. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come is some advice on how to stay committed to your New Year's resolutions. Welcome back. BC's police watchdog is seeking witnesses after a man was arrested for urinating on an RCMP station and was then found to have sustained an injury. The Independent Investigations Office says police had been called to help discharge the man from Lionsgate Hospital in North Vancouver on Saturday night, and the IIO said in a news release that the man was then seen urinating on the North Vancouver RCMP detachment across the street from the hospital. It then said the man was arrested and taken back to the nearby hospital where he was found to have been hurt. The IIO says they've launched an investigation to confirm if the victim's injury meets the standard of serious harm defined by the Police Act. They're also seeking witnesses to the arrest and will be looking into whether the actions that were taken by the police officers on scene were necessary, reasonable, as well as proportionate. The Emergency Call Service for British Columbia recently released their annual list that shows some of the otter calls that they've gotten in the year 2024. And while ECOM gets around 2 million or so calls yearly, not all of them ended up fitting the definition of an emergency.
You can understand some of the reasons people called 911 even though it wasn't technically an emergency, like the person who wanted to report their power was out. But from there, it only gets more ridiculous.
911, do you need police, fire, or ambulance?
BC's largest 911 dispatch center, ECOM, handles more than 2 million calls every year. Most are legitimate emergencies.
Did they make contact with the other vehicle?
But not all of them. One 911 caller in 2024 wanted to report a domesticated rabbit was wandering loose in a park. Another was looking for help to remove a wasp nest. If the dry cleaners stained your shirt, what would you do? Someone called 911.
Someone staining your shirt is not enough for police to get involved.
What if you felt your neighbor was wearing too much cologne? Don't pick up the phone.
Has there been any physical violence or anything other than the spraying of cologne?
One hungry caller was miffed over a McMuffin.
I personally took one of the calls, and that was our caller was very upset that McDonald's hadn't opened their doors yet in the morning.
McDonald's not opening their door is not a police issue. This is an inappropriate call for 911.
If that's a breakfast emergency, then perhaps it's no surprise someone felt similar distress over lost avocado toast.
One of my personal favorites was somebody was really upset that their box of 38 avocados that they got ended up being rotten.
As silly as some of these calls may be, the reason they're being released is no joke. Ecom says they eat up valuable time that could be used to help someone in an actual emergency.
And now we look to a report that has advice from a neurologist on how to best achieve your New Year's resolutions if you are desiring to really make it work. Over to ABC's Christiane Cordero with more.
As we turn the page on 2024, now is the time to set those New Year's resolutions for 2025.
So everyone's kind of thinking about what they really want the future to look like for themselves, and that's kind of a lofty process.
Neurologist Dr. Leah Kroll says people often set too many goals or goals that are too vague.
Set yourself up for success by focusing on just one or two goals that are really important to you for this year and getting very specific about it.
For example, I want to get in shape this year may sound great, but it's not really actionable.
Whereas if you say, I want to train for a 5K, you know exactly what you have to do.
Next, Dr. Kroll says to craft a plan for yourself.
Most goals are going to take multiple steps to achieve. So really mapping out for yourself, what is each step that I need to take over the course of the year to get where I want to get in the end.
So if your resolution is to eat more vegetables,
well, you've got to go to the grocery store. You've got to pick up your broccoli. You've got to look up a recipe. You've got to cook the broccoli.
And it's more than just a blueprint of what you have to do.
There's also something very gratifying on a chemical level in the brain about sort of checking things off your list and feeling like you're already making progress towards your goal.
Sharing your goal with the people in your life can help keep you accountable. And getting together with friends to make vision boards can help give you direction.
The process of going through and making a vision board is so helpful when it comes to really focusing on what your goals are. What do I want that end goal to really look like for me? What do I want my life to look like 1 year from now?
Dr. Kroll says there will be bumps in the road, and remember, we're human.
So there's absolutely no such thing as somebody who sets out to achieve every goal they've ever had and has carried out every step without any flaws. That just doesn't happen. It's not reality.
Don't beat yourself up about it or get upset. Continue moving forward to achieve your goal. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
A former production designer on a well-known game show has since started up a whole different kind of business, and her latest project is based on a dog who had a rather peculiar job a very long time ago. CTV's Adam Sawatsky has more.
Before being inspired to craft this canine out of chicken wire, Sheena McCorquodall says Mike the dog was a beloved bartender.
Arguably the most famous character that came out of Bowser.
The pup was even recognized by Ripley's Believe It or Not, Sheena says, for his work at the Bowser Hotel during the early 40s.
And he would go and take the beer out of the fridge, take it to the customers, and then bring the change back.
And like Mike, Sheena's career path has taken unexpected turns, including a stint on a game show.
Open the curtains, please.
Sheena led the design team on almost 250 episodes of Let's Make a Deal.
That it was so exciting. Somebody would run in and say, oh, we need 6 dancing swans in half an hour, or whatever, and you have to produce.
After Sheena stopped creating TV shows, she decided to start building a cat hotel.
I really put my mind into, if I was a cat, what would I like?
Along with creating safe places for the cats to climb around, both inside and out, Sheena installed a screen to keep them entertained.
You don't look for cat movies, you look for movies for cats to watch. And that is a genre.
After Sheena learned she could only post a small sign to advertise her home-based business, she discovered there was no limit to how many cat sculptures she could place on her property.
So I started making the giant cats out of chicken wire, and that sort of snowballed it.
Sheena says she was inspired to breathe life into the industrial material, transforming it into dynamic shapes.
The movement you can get, the feeling of movement, it's really quite beautiful.
They've captured the imagination of more than 70 international art collectors, along with the local group that commissioned Mike, a sculpture Sheena would love to remake way bigger.
You know, Duncan has the giant hockey stick. I'd love to have a giant Mike the dog that people could come and take photos.
And be inspired by, like Mike made the most of living in that small-town hotel, like Sheena made a deal to reinvent herself after the game show, like the sign she posted in her cat hotel, to bloom where you're planted.
Take whatever situation you have and make the best of it.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Qualicum Beach.
And now we will be turning our attention to how the stock markets are looking today as compared to yesterday. The Canadian dollar is down 5/100ths of a cent. The price of gold is up $22.90. Oil is up 73 cents. Natural gas is down 31 cents. Aluminum is up $16.50. In Toronto, the TSX is up 107.35 points. The Venture Index is up 4.44. The Dow Jones is down in New York 29.51, and NASDAQ is down 176. Still ahead is a rather unusual study based around virtual reality and mice. Welcome back. A groundbreaking study involving mice exploring virtual reality through tiny headsets could end up having some very real implications for overall behavioral and medical science. With Take a Look at This, here's CNN's Jeremy Roth.
Take a look at teeny tiny mice testing out teeny tiny virtual reality goggles in the name of science. In a study published in the journal Nature Methods, Cornell University researchers created the tiny VR headsets using low-cost components like smartwatch displays and lenses, and then strapped in their tiny test subjects, subjecting them to various visual stimuli. Researchers say in one test involving an approaching dark blotch, nearly every mouse tested jumped, as if to avoid a looming predator. The idea was to gain a better understanding of how animals behave in virtual reality, and researchers believe the tests of the animals' spatial navigation and memory functions could lead to new insights into disorders such as Alzheimer's disease and its potential treatments. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
A man was charged with allegedly assaulting a nurse at a Metro Vancouver hospital in an incident police say left her seriously injured last month. Port Moody police say a charge of assault causing bodily harm has been approved against a 41-year-old man with no fixed address. He's scheduled to appear in court in Port Coquitlam on February 10th. Investigators say the man was arrested after officers responded to a call at Eagle Ridge Hospital on November 20th about a discharged patient who allegedly attacked a female nurse. The statement from Port Moody police said the nurse sustained serious injuries but didn't elaborate on her condition. Police also say a woman in northeastern British Columbia who told an officer that she couldn't remember her name during a traffic stop has been arrested after an untraceable ghost gun was found in her vehicle. The BC Highway Patrol said the incident happened in Fort St. John on December 13th when an officer stopped the 39-year-old woman to check for impaired driving. Police say while the driver wasn't impaired, she told the officer she couldn't recall her name, prompting a vehicle search. The officer then found an illegal ghost gun, a privately assembled firearm that is not serialized or traceable. The search also yielded pepper spray, suspected illicit drugs, and almost $2,000 in cash. Police say the driver was arrested and later released with charges pending. That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin, and thank you for watching, and we all wish you a Happy New Year.